At the United stand, I told you it was going to start going off, didn't I, in relation to transfer news and Manchester United. And we've got some big one about Fred today. Get your notifications on, get subscribed to the channel, because it's going to be like this all summer. And we won't go live unless it's something, relatively credible though. Fred from Shakhtar Donetsk, Ukrainian league player for Shakhtar Donetsk. The development in the last couple of hours has been from Duncan Castles, who, again, I've said this before, and a lot of people say it, he's meant to be the mouthpiece of Jose Mourinho in relation to journalists. Fred, actually, there is a little bit more to this, and the reason I wouldn't normally think that we should maybe react to this just on its own, but basically Duncan Castles has said, I think it's through the Yahoo website, that Manchester United have offered a contract to Fred. Shakhtar Donetsk are going to let him go. He nearly went to Manchester City in January, but Shakhtar wanted to keep him because they felt it was important, and they didn't want to lower the price for such an important player. But they've now felt that he's done what they wanted him to do at Shakhtar Donetsk, and that they're willing to let him go less than his €60 million release clause for about £40 million, which would be a good deal. And let's not forget, for anybody who's going to have their doubts about Fred, and I'm certainly not going to say he's going to make us title winners or anything like that, but Manchester City were in for him in January, and we know what sort of player Pep wants and what Pep likes. And what you get with Fred is somebody who's more attacking than defensive. I don't know why people think he's a centre defensive midfielder, because he's not. He's more box to box, and he's certainly more attacking. He's quick, he's skillful, he's got a fantastic work rate. He's not particularly tall. He's around 25, not particularly tall. I think he's 5'6", 5'7". So it doesn't really fit in with the traditional sort of thing that we've seen from Jose Mourinho at Manchester United quite recently. And so I'd be quite excited by this deal as it happens. And I think it is going to happen. There's two things really now. One, we know, because it was said in the dressing room last Wednesday when Shakhtar Donetsk had won the cup, that the captain of Shakhtar on Instagram, being filmed, said that Fred was off to Manchester. So you knew he was going to United or City. In addition to that, we've now got this from Duncan Castles saying that Manchester United have offered him a contract. So it's looking very, very much like this deal is going to be done very, very soon. How soon it can be done depends on a few things, because he is part of the Brazilian World Cup squad. Unlike Fabinho and Sandro, quite surprisingly, they're not part of it. So hopefully maybe we'll sign 3 Brazilians: Fabinho, Fred and Sandro. Happy, let's go home, we're finished. But Fred is part of the Brazilian World Cup squad, and also, traditionally, the Ukrainian League doesn't finish until the middle of June, so I don't know whether they're ending it early because of the World Cup. I don't even know if Ukraine are in it, to be honest, but United would be hoping to get that deal done sooner rather than later, and I'd be very excited about it. The only thing I didn't like about the article that I read was that Manchester United are after at least one midfielder, dependent on whether Fellaini goes. I don't think we can just get Fred and that's it. I still think we need to be going after Milinkovic-Savic. But this is a very different direction for Manchester United if this happens. And we know that fans are a little bit unhappy at the moment with the way we've been playing. We know that there's a concern about this hoofball, sort of slow, negative football that we've been playing. And what you get with Fred, and I'm not going to pretend to say I've watched loads of him, but I know enough about him to know that he isn't a player that's going to suit a team that moves the ball slowly, moves the ball in the air. As I say, he's not particularly tall. He is fast, he is dynamic, and he likes to play on the front foot, moving the ball forward. Typical Brazilian. Tenacious, yes, but not a centre defensive midfielder either. So he's going to want to play further forward, which in a midfield three, I would imagine he would drop into the Herrera position at the moment, where you'd have Matic, Fred and Pogba, if you had a midfield three. Which again, probably puts alarm bells into many people's eyes, because they're like, well, he's never going to drop Matic. He's never going to drop Pogba. And if we sign Fred, are we going to sign another midfielder? And all I would say to that is, how sure are you that Paul Pogba is going to be a Manchester United player next season? Because if he's not, maybe that is where Milinkovic-Savic comes in. But do you get Fred and Milinkovic-Savic? It would be two very, 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 very good players to bring into Manchester United. I don't know. If Fellaini stays, I don't think we will. I thought you went live because Manchester United announced the transfer, says Kejav. No, that's not how it works on the United stand. But we won't just go live. You know, we're 7 o'clock in the morning with the Transfer Daily and we're 8 o'clock at night with our nightly show. But what will happen over the transfer window is we will go live if there's something that we feel that's credible to go live on. I'm not going to go live because the Daily Express says we're signing Bale. You know, it's not going to happen. But this is something that if you've been watching the show for the last week, we did talk about Fred last week and what his captain had said in the dressing room. So it was definitely going to be Manchester United or Manchester City that he comes to. I still felt that maybe it would be City, because City really did want him in January. But now with this development around Duncan Castles, who's meant to be very, very close to Mourinho, that Manchester United have offered him a contract, then it's looking very, very promising for Manchester United. Is Fred like Andreas Pereira, says Taboo? No, not really. Not really, because he's in mid-20s and he has been playing first-team football in midfield for a long time. Pereira's more, I think, more of a width player than a central midfielder. We'll have to see what happens with Pereira, obviously. And I think Pogba should stay, but next season is obviously make or break, says Tribal RA. Fred is like Herrera, but more skillful and a better passer, says Young Lord, which I think, sort of what I was trying to get across there. He is definitely more offensive, and I would be excited if we signed him, because he's totally against the way we've been playing this season, or last season with Jose Mourinho, quite a slow, static midfield. He isn't slow or static. And like Jose was on about a couple of weeks ago, having that Brazilian mentality, he's a flair player. He wants to be on the front foot. And I think that in a Manchester United midfield would make a big difference. And hopefully we are going to start turning a corner next season around the way we're going to play. It's 12:43 at night here in Australia, says Daniel Degar. So yes, Daniel makes a good point though. He says Fernandinho was more of an attacking midfielder until he came to Manchester City, where they made him a little bit more defensive. Look, I wouldn't have a problem with Fred being turned into a centre defensive midfielder for Manchester United like Fernandinho was at Man City, because what you're going to get then is a very quick, tenacious midfielder who wants to play on the front foot. I would take Matic out and put Fred in there every day of the week, but we know Jose is not going to do that. Matic is going to play next season every day of the week. But this deal, you can't quite say it's a done deal yet, because it obviously isn't, but it's looking very, very, very likely that this deal will be done for Manchester United. Will Alexandro be done though, or was that the smokescreen for this Brazilian? We'll have to wait and see. But we are back live at 8 o'clock tonight. Remember, we are now moving into that stage where the United stands could be going live at any time. If there's a credible story out there, we will go live. So it's not just 8 o'clock and 7 o'clock in the morning. Get subscribed to the channel, turn your notifications on with your bell, tick get all notifications, because we will go live if there's something worth doing. Like I say, I'm not going to go live to everything, but we've been doing this for 3 years now, and we tend to be right when we do go live. So look, I'm not one of those people who say definitely it's going to happen, but it's looking very, very much like Fred will be a Manchester United player. So give us your thoughts below. What do you think? Contract offered. His captain said he's coming to Manchester last Wednesday. It's, you don't need a weatherman to tell you it's pissing it down, do you? It's looking like it's happening. Give us your thoughts below. I think it's a positive. And the great thing I would say before I do go is, when it happens, it's such a different sort of midfielder to what we've got at the moment. Small, fast, skillful. It really gives us something that we want to see that we haven't seen. Thanks for watching. I'll be back at 8 o'clock.